Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, if you would just take a moment and look up at this mural. It's in Shampooey at the earliest part of Oregon's history. And at the time, you can see that pioneers were divided. And yet at the front, you can see there were a few pioneers with their hands extended, trying to find common ground, trying to make Oregon a better place to live. Today, colleagues, I bring you House Concurrent Resolution 18 to talk about a modern-day pioneer. A pioneer similar to Tom McCall, to Barbara Roberts, to Vera Katz, to Ben Westland. People who in one way or another have made Oregon a better place to live and to work. Today, colleagues, I'm going to share a resolution about a gentleman I know by the name of Gary Neal from Boardman, Oregon. If I may, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to read this resolution. Whereas Gary Neal grew up in Clarkston, Washington, and attended Washington State University, and whereas from 1981 to 1989, Gary Neal worked at the Port of Clarkston, first as a commissioner and then as a manager. And whereas in 1989, the Port of Morrow was searching for a new general manager, and Gary Neal's exemplary and innovative work at the Port of Clarkston attracted their attention. And whereas when Gary Neal visited the Port of Morrow in 1989, the local economy was really in rough shape, with high unemployment, and the landscape was mostly undeveloped space of sagebrush and desert. But the port had vast potential in terms of its location, natural resources, utilities, and transportation infrastructure. And whereas not only did Gary Neal accept the job offer, but his vision and leadership helped to turn that sagebrush and desert into one of the most productive areas in the state of Oregon. And whereas under Gary Neal's stewardship, the Port of Morrow has become Oregon's second largest port. And might I add, colleagues, it was the last port formed in the state of Oregon. The last port. And now is the second largest port in the state of Oregon, with port-related business accounting for an estimated $2.8 billion in annual output. Whereas the Port of Morrow's revitalization and growth have had a profound effect on the regional economy of Morrow and Umatilla counties and all of eastern Oregon, and secondary benefits of direct port-related business and construction spending generating more than $800 million in annual sales. Whereas when Gary and Kathy Neal brought their family in 1989 to Boardman, Oregon, they came not just for a job to make it their home. And they have been an enormous asset to the community with their tireless civic engagement and volunteer activities. Colleagues, I'd share with you one of Gary Neal's passions is making sure folks who work in Morrow County live in Morrow County. Not in Washington, not across the river, but here in Oregon. That is one of his passions. Whereas the Neal Early Learning Center is named in honor of Gary and Kathy Neal, and it reflects their ongoing commitment to serving the youth of Morrow County, especially through the vehicle of early learning education. Again, colleagues, a general manager who every day is advocating for industrial development, recognizing the need for early learning education and what that can mean to Oregon's long-term economy. Whereas another project that gives Gary Neal a great sense of personal accomplishment is the Port of Morrow's Sage Center, which is an attractive facility that highlights sustainable, responsible agriculture and energy and gives visitors a unique opportunity to understand the region by learning more about it. Colleagues, that Sage Center is right off of Interstate 84. You can come and have a great burger at the C&D and spend an afternoon at the Sage Center. Whereas Gary Neal's wide-ranging talents and accomplishments and intellect have earned him universal respect, from industry leaders and public officials alike in areas as diverse as finance, infrastructure, education, and workforce development. And whereas Gary Neal has provided his expertise and leadership in many other key roles with private and public entities over the years, including working with the Bank of Eastern Oregon, Windwave, the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association, and the Oregon Public Ports Association. And I might add, he has served on Oregon's Infrastructure Finance Authority Board working with Business Oregon. Whereas Gary and Kathy Neal have been married for 45 years and are the proud parents of Rochelle and Ryan, and they have 4 grandchildren. Colleagues, Gary Neal is now retired from the Port of Morrow as of November 2018, and I feel fortunate that I can bring this House concurrent resolution forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, in my 10 terms in the Oregon legislature, I have never introduced a resolution. I have worked with many, many great individuals, but I hold them as a special act of this body, and I would ask for your support.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Smith, do you wish to close?
Most briefly. Colleagues, now I want to share the personal side. I came out of Portland State University, was a few credits shy of my MBA, and I went and knew I wanted to get back to Eastern Oregon. And so I went and worked for this little development corporation, a nonprofit helping communities grow. And after a year or two, out in the parking lot in Condon, Oregon, Gary came to me and asked if I would like to work for the port. And for a period of 4 or 5 years, I had that opportunity. And I had the opportunity to be mentored by Gary, to learn about how you can build collaboration, how you can build communities, how you can bring diverse groups together for the benefit of a region. Gary Neal gave me an opportunity that I would never have. I will never forget Representative Ben Westland, who was serving at the time as the co-chair of Ways and Means, contacting Gary and saying, we need Greg to run for the legislature. Will you support that? And Gary did. The other thing I'd share with you is during most difficult times, Gary has been a personal friend. When we've needed help, when we've needed mentoring, Gary's the type of person that'll reach out and help. And he's done it not only for me, but for countless folks none of us will ever know about. I hope you'll support House Concurrent Resolution 18. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.